Hey, what's up, guys? You already know that building a system for predictable and scalable revenue generation is a cornerstone for any digital agency. The ability to repeatably close new clients and accurately forecast incoming sales is essential to growing to seven figures and beyond. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how I've constructed my sales process, which has closed over 820 clients for digital agency services, including content marketing, SEO, website redesigns, CRM implementations, and much, much more. I'm going to teach you how I think about the critical steps to include in my sales process. We're going to talk about the purpose and plan behind each call. And also, I'm going to share with you how I increased my out for signature to close one rate by 38%. But first, if you're wondering who I am and why you should listen, my name is Polliard, and I'm the VP of Sales for Blue Leads. We're a 50-person all-in-house agency that has helped clients with digital marketing services such as content marketing, SEO, website redesigns, HubSpot CRM implementations, and much, much more. The fact is, sales has transformed my life, and my goal with these videos is to share the lessons I've learned along the way to help those of you that are earlier in your journey reach what your definition of success looks like much, much faster than I did. So with that said, let's get into it. First off, let's talk about the benefits of a sales process. In my opinion, and I think you could agree, it wouldn't really make sense for an airline crew to fly across the country without a clearly defined route. Let's say we're flying from Florida to Washington State. Without a clearly defined route, even if the pilot were off by just a few degrees over the course of that 2,500, 3,000 mile trip, by the time we got to our destination, we'd be way off course, and who knows, I might end up in Oregon or Idaho or Canada for all I know. I believe that the same is true for sales. I strongly, absolutely actually believe in not winging it. I believe we should go into the sales process with a clearly defined plan. The reality is, if we wing it, sometimes we strike gold, but oftentimes we find ourselves backtracking. And in my opinion, we never end up maximizing the deal for all it's worth, even if we end up winning the deal. In fact, studies have shown, and it's widely accepted, that having a defined sales process results in more close won revenue. And beyond that, I've seen firsthand wide-ranging benefits, including more accurate sales forecasts, more predictable results, a way better customer experience, higher win rates, the ability to scale, the ability to onboard reps more effectively, and much, much more. I believe personally that the sales process should be a precise, choreographed, and articulated journey that the sales process guides his or her buyer through. Using the analogy of like a top surgeon, you come to see one of the best surgeons in the country. They get things started off by understanding the pain experienced by his patient. Then he's going to assess and diagnose the source of the pain, really get to the root cause of the issue. Then he's going to perform a surgery that'll lead to a pain-free, healthy, and fulfilling life. And I believe that the same is for us. As salespeople, it's important that we establish rapport and we build a connection with our prospects. And we've got to assess and diagnose the problems holding them back from their goals. Then we need to present and close them on a solution that will lead them to the growth that they're looking for to build their businesses. So with that said, let's outline what the actual sales process looks like for me. Whether a lead comes from outbound cold calling, events, referrals, ads, the website, calls, doesn't really matter. Once a lead has been acquired and they've agreed to learn more about our services, here's what's proof successful for me. Step one, the intro call, or what I like to call the connect call. Typically, this is going to be a 30-minute call. I recommend 30 minutes on the calendar. Needs to be booked on the calendar. Handle this via Zoom or, some sort of virtual conferencing solution, Google Meets, whatever. I recommend always having your video on. Make sure you've got a clean, tidy background, or even better, just keep it simple. Have a branded virtual background that you use. Highly recommend showing up with a fired up attitude. Just be fired up and show the potential client you're excited to learn about them and their business. One thing that is really important to me, and I think different than some of the stuff that I've seen out there, or hear about from my prospects, is really on this initial call. I want to avoid turning this into a pitch fest. Instead, for me, I like to set an agenda, and I want to get the prospect talking as much as possible. They've already agreed to learn about our services at this point. So I really believe that it's important we take a lesson out of win friends and influence people, and we show interest in the prospect and what they're trying to achieve. Quote I really, really love by Andy Elliott. Don't know if he said it, but he's the one that I heard it from. Is he says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I mean, this is just like, this is my philosophy really for sales. And I think this is huge. If you can adopt that and inject that into this call and the next call, really just the whole sales process, the sky is the limit. So in this initial intro call, really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to identify a problem, specific problem or set of problems that we can solve with our services. And I want to establish if there's a good mutual fit. It should go both ways. I'm, evaluating the prospect, but I can tell you my mindset is I'm always looking for reasons to do a deal. But it's got to be a good fit. They got to be a good fit client. I've got to be able to truly serve and deliver for them. And then also, they should be able to ask us questions and ensure that we're a good fit for them. So some of the questions I like to ask on this call is just better understand why they're having this conversation now, what they're looking to achieve, get some info into what they've tried so far, ask about their timeline, and then really want to give them a chance to ask some questions and use those questions as the ability for me to sort of pitch what we do and help, lower their defenses and get agreement on next steps. So after the intro call, I'll move into call number 2, which is the discovery call. So in my opinion, the most important of this part of the sales process is discovery. I believe this is where winners start to really separate from the losers. And I believe that it's in discovery where someone who is truly prepared for a call, a real professional salesperson, starts to shine through with pointed questions that show good intentions and a desire to align, help, and serve their clients. During this call, I'm really focused on taking the baseline info gathered during the intro call. So it's important that you have an AI note taker, or you take really good notes, or have that call recorded and go back to your intro call and pull out the bits of information that the client shared with you, so that you can get some questions prepared in advance and go 2, 3, 4, 5 layers deep to better understand things like their current situation. So better understanding what they're doing today, what are their traffic and lead numbers, what are their revenue numbers, then getting into their desired future state or, their goals. What are the desired results they're trying to achieve, and what are the impact of, of those results, goals, and or objectives. And then from there, we got current state, we got future state. Usually there's a gap. That's the thing that we want to solve for. So I really want to spend some time on this call articulating that gap between current and future to really understand the, the magnitude of the problem. And a really good way, really easy question to help get that conversation started is asking, once you're getting into goals with the client, is just ask them, hey, if nothing else changes, if you continue on this trajectory, whatever that timeline is that they have, how close will they get to their goal? That's a really telling part of a conversation and allows you usually a good jumping off point to really help start articulating that gap for digital agency services. Then also on the discovery call, I want to get back into and get a better idea of their timeline and dive into decision-making process and budget, and there are different ways that you can do that. And really, from here, once I've had that conversation, typically for me, I like to make this 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the services, that we're aligning with and the complexity of the deal. Once I wrap this call up, I've seen huge success by actually gaining access to the client's analytics accounts or social or whatever it is that you do, those reports and those systems that are important for your specific services. I like to get access to those or get some sort of reports that they're willing to share so I can better quantify and assess their current situation prior to reviewing a game plan or presenting a proposal. From discovery, I move into call number 3. This is my strategy or game planning call. It's important that up to this point in the sales process, I'm really aiming to do about 20% of the talking. I'm really spending my time focusing on asking questions to keep my prospect talking to help me better understand what things look like from their side of the table. I want to be plugged in with them, understanding what they're going through, what they're trying to achieve, where they're at in their maturity level for my services to really help set me up so I can provide recommendations and services that are going to deliver on what they need. But once I move into the strategy or game planning call, that percentage starts to shift. This is really where we go from that 20% me talking, 80% client to more of a 50-50 side of things. So during this call, I'm basically focused on presenting the plan, really the strategy to the client. This is where I'd review findings from the audit, educate the prospect on how we intend to solve their problems and how we intend to help their goal. I'm not necessarily reviewing numbers here. I'm getting alignment on the strategy, getting that buy-in and really collaborating with the client so that I know when I do present numbers, I'm dialed in, we're aligned, 10 out of 10, ready to rock and roll. It's important that when you're having this conversation, I believe it needs to be led with certainty. It should come from a true place of service with the client. So you got to be confident in your plan and you got to really have their best interests in mind. As I'm going through this part of the conversation, I think it's really important to be checking in with the prospect. So as you go through a certain element, it could be talking about SEO, and maybe you're walking through how your organization approaches, content strategy, for example. Maybe you adopt a topic cluster pillar type strategy. So as you kind of make certain points, I think it's important to check in with the client throughout that conversation. We want them engaged as much as possible. Communication's a two-way street. Otherwise, we're just talking at people, we're presenting, and I could just do that through a YouTube video like I'm doing here. So as you're going through key elements of your strategy, be sure you're checking in. It's like, hey, this makes a lot of sense and it'll solve for your goal, right? Or, hey, this will be huge in helping your team achieve your social media lead generation goal of X. Wouldn't you agree? Things like that to, help understand your level of alignment and get that buy-in and give you a sense of where you're at in the deal. So once I've walked through the strategy and the approach with the prospect, really then I want to move in and trial close the client before I go in and set up a proposal review. Last thing I want to do is present numbers on a solution that the client's not bought into. So as I'm wrapping up this call and we've kind of gone through everything, you can ask a question, something like this, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, on a scale of 1 to 10, how certain are you what we reviewed today will provide the results you're looking for? They're going to be like, if you did a great job, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm really aligned here. Sometimes they'll say, I never give a 10, we're right there. This is great. A lot of times, you really want to hear, this is the best that I've seen. This is awesome. This really hits on everything that we're looking for. But it's important that you look out for being yes to death. So I like to face any potential objections head on. An easy way to start doing this in your sales process is just asking, after this question, hey, scale of 1 to 10, how aligned are we? Blah, blah, blah. And you can move into something like, okay, well, hey, that's great feedback. I really appreciate it. Tell me, what are your concerns about what we reviewed? And then, start to dive into some of those and any potential red flags. Really, you want to face head on before you move to the next step, because the next step is really where you go from selling. You're going to ultimately move into closing the deal, and you want to keep the deal moving forward. You don't want to move backward. So it's important to get this stuff out now, know where you stand, and that way you maximize your chances of closing the business. So once you've dug into concerns and got a real good sense of alignment, let's assume that everything's good to go. Like this sales process is lining up 10 out of 10. I'd say something like, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, this is excellent. I want to draft this up into a proposal for us to review together. Assuming the numbers all make sense, what additional information would you need to make a decision? Boom. At this point, they're going to outline maybe if they're going to have to talk to somebody. Maybe they want to meet, depending on the size of your agency, they want to meet who will be doing the work. Could be any number of things, but questions are how you, and proper listening are how we can actually, understand where we're at in the deal and what is required to get things closed. So this two-way communication, asking these questions at these critical steps is absolutely important. Let's say from there, I ask them what additional information they need. They say, hey, actually nothing. This is amazing. Let's get this stuff on paper. And if the numbers make sense, I want to get things rolling. Fantastic. At this point, I know that I'm aligned with my prospect. If I've done a good job doing discovery around budget, I don't have any concerns about that going into my next call. I'm already figuring out how all that's going to happen. And now I know they're bought into the solution or our actual services. Now that's all that's left to do is to present the numbers and get them to move forward and close the deal. So as we move out of the strategy game planning call, again, that's number 3. We're moving into call number 4. Oh man, this is the big boy. This is the proposal review. So on this call, usually this is 30 minutes, but sometimes longer. Honestly, it's commonly can be longer depending on the complexity of what you're reviewing and the size of the company that you're working with. But anyway, this is where I'm taking the strategy that we reviewed, that grand vision I got buy-in on from the last call. Now we're putting the numbers in black and white, and we're asking to secure the prospect's business. So my number 1 most important tip when it comes to closing customers here is never, ever send a proposal to a potential client without reviewing it with them first. This is that single change in my process that increased my close rate by 38%. When I first got started in sales, I just did what I saw other salespeople do. And I would send over my proposal via email. And I just ask the client or tell the client, hey, let me know if you have any questions, or here's the proposal. Let's get on a call to discuss. Let me know a good time. Some sort of talk track or, email, word track like that. And I would get ghosted over and over and over again. And I couldn't understand why I was losing deals. It wasn't until I had a sales savage take me under her wing. Shout out to Leah. If you are watching this, thank you for everything. You rock. I would not be here if it were not for you. So thank you. But it wasn't until she took me under her wing that it all clicked for me. If we send our proposals out without reviewing them with the prospect first, number 1, we've lost all our leverage at this stage of the deal. The proposal is what prospects want at the end of the day. When they have that, they feel like they have everything they need, and our leverage is greatly diminished. And number 2, and probably more importantly, is we're leaving so much to interpretation. When we review the proposal in real time, we can observe and listen for implicit and explicit feedback from the prospect. As we're talking through things with them, we're observing the different questions or lack thereof that they're asking. We can get insight into their level of engagement. We can, because we're on Zoom, we got cameras on. They're going to follow what we do. We can observe their body language. If you're local and you present in person, that's even better. We can observe the body language. We can get insight into their tonality and their confidence or hesitation in their voice. We can also, address any questions or concerns that they have in real time to clarify things, to ease their fears and overcome any potential objections and move in to close the customer. If we just send things over via email, we lose all of this control. And really, in my opinion, we're doing half of our job. It doesn't make any sense that we'd ask somebody to sign up for some sort of 12-month commitment or even project-based work for thousands of dollars without actually presenting what we're going to do and what that greater tomorrow is going to look like. So very, very important. Make sure you're reviewing your proposals in real time with your clients before you send them over. Now, in an ideal world, we get a signature on this call, but I work in a B2B scenario, and frankly, this is rarely the case. It's happened, and it's an awesome feeling, but it's more the exception than the rule. So from my experience, I'd say the main goal that we're looking for on this call, again, this is going to vary based on the types of companies that you guys are working with, but I'm usually working with companies from 5 to 100 million. So usually I'm not getting signature on that call. But anyway, we want to get a verbal agreement like that where the client is agreeing to work with us maybe they just got to go back, have the CFO sign off, or do a meeting with the team if they're the CEO and just give everybody a heads up or whatever that looks like. We want verbal. And then also we got to make sure we hold the prospect accountable, because verbals are fantastic, but they're not money in the bank account. So be sure as you're get that verbal, and if you aren't securing verbal, that should be a red flag. But also you need to make sure we're securing specific timelines. So, okay, fantastic. If I'm getting verbal, they got to go talk to the CFO. When's that happening? Is that meeting scheduled? What concerns will the CFO had? I need to make sure the CFO is the signer on the proposal. Like, get all those specifics, and then gain a commitment to next steps. So I would recommend that if you don't get a signature on that call, schedule what I like to title a proposal feedback and next steps call. Usually this is a 15-minute call based on the timeline of events discussed with the prospect. Now, this is a way to help create some accountability, and it definitely increases the likelihood of locking the deal down, especially if you're really serious about sales and you're trying to hit monthly numbers. Always having these next steps throughout the sales process first is vital, but especially this proposal feedback call, it'll really help you get things closed up in month if that's important to you. In some situations, you may get news on this call that the prospect has chose someone else. I've had that happen. And, frankly, that's okay. It's sales. I believe in my heart and my mind that any prospect I'm working, I can and should close those sales. But in reality, I know it doesn't work that way. And so at least being able to get that feedback if they went another direction, or, it's being able to get that face-to-face is 1,000 times better to me than getting ghosted forever and getting some sort of generic, we went another direction email. And honestly, when we have that call scheduled and we get the good news, it's amazing to be able to thank the client in real time and maybe ask them questions and help lock down a kickoff call and, just get them jazzed up about working with us. So really have that call. Be sure that you're just always scheduling next steps through the sales process, and I think you'll be in good shape. So we've covered a lot here, but to quickly recap, the sales process for, that I run for digital agency services. Number one, we got the intro or connect call. Whole purpose of this is to establish fit and make sure we're not wasting each other's time. Then we move into call number two, the discovery call. This is where we dive into the specifics. We start to uncover how we can best serve the client. Call number three is our strategy or game plan call. This is where we're presenting our strategy and how we're going to make the client's problems go away. Then we move into our proposal review call. This should be slam dunk. If you get to this point, really you're just putting things on paper, agreeing on numbers, and closing down the deal. And then in the event that you don't get your deal signed on that review call, have a proposal feedback and next steps call, sort of a backstop call when needed. This will help keep the process moving along, and it creates accountability when people need to review with their partners, pitch it to their board, talk to the CFO, whatever. So this framework has helped me close millions in deals for digital marketing services, website redesigns, CRM implementations, and more. It's a very, this is a very flexible type call framework, but I've literally applied it to all these different scenarios. And as long as you're asking the right questions, you know what you're doing, you're locked in with your services, your proposals, I'm confident that it can help you do the same. So I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.